From a Jim Henson emulator to latex puppet innovator, Steve Axtell joins us today on
Ventriloquism Weekly.
Hey, 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 it's Matt Bailey. Those of you that are old enough will get that. Welcome on this Monday, August 12th, 2013. It is at times like this, I feel like I'm doing some kind of time capsule thing, because at the time you are hearing this, I'm in Branson, Missouri, but right here and now we're in Pennsylvania in studio. It's such a weird Twilight Zone-y feeling. I digress. Anyway, the gentleman you are about to hear from over the last few weeks after recording his interview has become a huge supporter of the effort of this podcast. And I just want to thank him for that before we get into this fantastic conversation that we had. Steve Axtell is a name recognized by many vents for his colorful and expressive latex puppets, thus the name of his company, Axtell Expressions. Known by ventriloquists around the world, Mr. Axtell is the visionary behind the many characters his company creates and loved by the many more entertainers who use them. Celebrating 31 years in character creating and magic making, here to talk about his incredible journey, including the leap of faith to full-time he took at the suggestion of his wife, please welcome Steve Axtell to the program. Thank you for being with us, Steve Axtell. How are you today, sir?
Hey, Matt. Good. Fantastic.
Well, you are well known throughout this vent community as creating some very vibrant, beautiful characters out of latex from your company, Axtell Expressions. And I always begin at the beginning, and I just wanted to start and ask you, what inspired you to start making puppets?
Wow. When I was a really young kid, my father was a minister, and we would have guest speakers come to the church, and some of them were magicians and some of them were ventriloquists, and one was a puppet maker, and they would show me all their stuff. As a very young kid, I was inspired, extremely inspired. So I got into magic first and started making puppets. By the time I was 14 or so, I was doing puppet shows in my church and school, and my mom sent a newspaper clipping to Jim Henson, and that's the story of when Jim Henson wrote back to me and said, Steve, you've got a lot of talent, but you shouldn't make my characters, find your own characters. And I had made Oscar the Grouch and Kermit the Frog and different ones in that photograph that I had sent to him, or my mom sent to him.
Yes, and so when he said when he sent that back, was that a little discouraging, or was that just something that sparked you to eventually work with latex?
Well, it certainly should not have been discouraging, but I was a very young kid. At 14, it was very discouraging, and it felt like all my dreams were dashed forever, and I would never, ever be able to make a puppet of my own. And actually, in that picture, there are some puppets that I had made that were mine, but of course, my focus was on the ones that were his. So I was dashed. I didn't know what my own look would be. I didn't know how to create my own style, and so that became my quest. And it was a big question in my life at the time, because I knew I was going to do this. I had every inclination to be in the business of making puppets and characters. I knew it, and I dreamed it every day. And when I was with my parents at Disney World in Florida, they walked me around the Main Street area, and I went into this magic shop, and there were Don Pedro masks, latex masks on the wall, and it stopped me in my tracks, and I thought, those are really interesting. I'd never seen anything like it before, and I thought, could a puppet be made like that? And I didn't know that there were a couple of people that had already things like that. And the story continues with an amazing connection. One of the people that had made latex puppets was Craig Lovick. And when I was 14, I saw that, and I began experimenting with latex. And my high school art teacher, Mr. Casto, helped me with that. in high school, we experimented, and I'd bring him results and things, and he was very encouraging to me. He was also a magician, so he had a special interest in this field. And then one day, many years later, when I was 21, and married to Susie, my wife, we were in this very, very small town of Atascadero, California, and I was working as a psych tech in that state facility there. My wife was going to college. And I said one Sunday morning with Susie, I said, hey, let's pick out a church to go to. And we just literally flipped the yellow pages and put our finger down on the name of a church. So we just decided we'll go there. So we went and we sat down, and it was hilarious. We walked into it was a preschool. They were meeting in a preschool, and everybody, all probably not more than 25 people, all adults were sitting in these little tiny preschool chairs. And so here I am with Susie, and we're thinking, why in the world of all the churches do we have to come here? Well, afterwards, a man came up to me and asked me over to ask Susie and I over to their house for lunch. And I said, oh, sure, and we were newly married and never going to pass up a chance for a free meal. So we went over there, and he began to ask me what I do. And I told him, well, I'm a psych tech at the hospital, but my real passion is my shows that I do on the weekend. I'm a ventriloquist and a magician. Actually, I was a puppeteer and a magician. I wasn't a ventriloquist yet at that time. And he said, really? He goes, that's fascinating. And we talked a little bit more about it, and I told him about the puppets that I made and in my act and some of the magic things that I had come up with. And he said, would you like to see what I do? And I said, I was just going to ask you. And he said, well, follow me. And we walked down his hallway in the house. He opened a door to what I thought was going to be a bedroom, and it opened up into a huge workshop. And it was Craig Lubbock, who had made the ventriloquist dummies for years for Mayer Studios. He had the business name of Mayer Workshop, which I guess was something he assumed. And then he also had made some latex puppets that were on the back of a flyer that I had under my pillow growing up as a little kid. Isn't that something? I couldn't believe it.
Wow.
Still have the flyer right here. I'd show it to you if I could, but
yeah.
It's right here. And a friend of mine that was who was older, that gave me the flyer, he wrote on it, Steve, you should go into business. These are $75. And he put exclamation marks there. And they were the dummies.
That's great. So how did Axtell Expressions come to be out of your experimenting with latex?
Well, I always was a lot more than latex. So latex just happens to be something that I began with as an inspiration. So it was a way for me to sculpt and to cast and to get a result of something that looked amazing and looked like those masks that I was after. That look. But I was also inventing magic and illusions, and I was in my show at the time, had the bird arm illusion that everybody knows now.
Yeah.
I had that in my show. And so we were in Atascadero, and Susie was going to school. She had just graduated and was working full-time in a sewing industry. And she said to me one afternoon, she said, Steve, would you like to just stop our full-time jobs and start our business? Like, you could do your shows full-time, and I could help you make puppets. And and I was pretty excited about that. I was like, oh, my wife's suggesting something that I would normally, but I was very responsible and said, well, let's start our business. Let's not quit our jobs yet. And obviously, we have a lot of work to do before we can replace that income. So we started in the bedroom of our little Atascadero house, and it was just a tiny little 10 by 12 bedroom, and it was my workshop. It was a spare bedroom we had, and I even had a garden hose coming in the window into a bucket, and that was my sink. And and I have all of these really funny little stories of that place. We made messes. The molds would overflow in the mold and get all over the kitchen linoleum, and we just ruined that house with Axtell Expressions. But But that was our start. And my first customer was in 1982, Jeff Kozad, who recently came out here to our current studio and visited me just about a month ago. His picture's on our Facebook page.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So, off of that, how has being an entertainer yourself? I mean, there's videos of you using using your products on stage at kid shows and stuff. How has being an entertainer formed what you want to offer to the event community and to the puppet community, magic community?
Yeah, well, that's I think that's a key to what I do. I'm not just a builder; I'm a user too. And when some of my best ideas come from when I am planning to entertain, whether it's, and I don't do a lot of that anymore, but if I have a like a show coming up, a dealer show or a like Mint Haven or Magic convention, that kind of thing, Cadabra. When I'm going to those, that gives me the same kind of mental stimulus as it would be if I was still performing, on stage every week. And so I get these because I know what I want to do to amaze an audience when I step out there, and I've got tricks up my sleeve to pull on them that they've never seen before. And so that starts my invention mode. So I think it benefits entertainers like yourself that you get to have the inspirations from me, who is, probably gifted with invention in terms of entertainment, and I can provide those tools for you guys who are actually doing the performing now. I'm not,
right?
But my goal in life was to make people happy, and since I can spread that out through all of my customers all around the world, I think it's a lot more than I could have ever done.
And you certainly have made many, many entertainers around the world happy. And how does that feel personally to know you started this years ago and now you're seeing posters everywhere of entertainers that with your products? How does that feel?
Yeah. Oh, man, it feels fantastic. And Facebook is, any social media is tremendous for bringing us all together.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that is super exciting is that I can go, and we haven't started doing this yet, but Susie and I want to travel the world more and manage less. And as we do that, there's not a country in the world that I probably couldn't call someone and connect with that is using our products now or has in the past or will be in the future when we are traveling. It's just all over the map. It's over 80 countries.
Yes, and some very, very big name entertainers have contacted you, have been working with you. How did you? We had him on last week. How did you first get involved with Terry Fator?
Terry Fator was a name that I didn't know, and not many of the ventriloquists on at the time. The one network that I was on with ventriloquists was World Vents,
yeah,
and on Yahoo groups, and there was a very early email that came through, and I've put it up there many times now that he's become famous. That he was looking for writers, and this was back in, I think it was 2003, 2004. And I still have that email. But he said, hey, my name is Terry Fator. I do fairs and stuff, and I'm looking for somebody to help me write. I want to improve my shows. And nobody responded to him. It was, and then I never heard from him again. The reason I know about that email is I did an email search once he got famous. So my story with Terry is that I was watching America's Got Talent like the rest of the world was, and we saw this ventriloquist, and people were starting to talk about this. Did you see that ventriloquist on the, and he's gone into the semifinals, and it looks like he's really good. This guy's really good. Has anybody seen it? A couple of people said, oh, yeah, I remember his name on the fair circuit, because I did the fair circuit too, they said. And so it began to he began to feel familiar to some people. But for me, I looked at it as an opportunity, like I do many things in businesses. This guy's about to win. Wow, what if he won with an Axtell puppet? And wouldn't that be cool?
Right.
And so I found that old email, and I emailed him, and I said, Terry, my name is Steve Axtell. I have a puppet company in California, and I would be interested in making you a puppet that it looks as if you're going to win. You just let me know what you want, and we would work with you to make a custom puppet that you could win with. And he wrote back to me and said, or he called me, and he said, Steve, Mr. Axtell, oh my gosh. He goes, do I know you? He goes, I know who you are. I never could afford any of your puppets. And he goes, if I win America's Got Talent, I will definitely be ordering. You're on my list of someone who I want to buy puppets from for my show. And I'm like, well, that's really cool. That's fantastic. But I want to, he goes, no, I got a plan. I've got this little turtle bot for $60 in the toy store. And I really think I'm going to use that. I've got this idea about putting a wig on him and having him sing like Roy Orbison. And so I think I'm taken care of for this, but I'll let you know if I win. And so I said, oh, we'll be watching and praying for you, and we're really excited. Go get him. So the day after he won, he called me. He said, Steve, I won. Or it might have even been the day before they announced it. I knew before they had announced it on television. Terry said, they won, and I'm going to order right away. And so he began to place an order. He and his manager bought some puppets, and one of them was my jazz man at the time because he needed a Julius who he knew he was going to be in. Julius was a character that wanted to be in Terry's show, and this was for the Hilton show before he got the deal at the Mirage. And Terry said, I need it real fast. Can you get it? I don't need the trumpet. I don't need the handkerchief. I want the jazz man. And in fact, don't even put a suit on him. I'm going to put a white suit on him. So he put together that version of Julius, which was his first version and my favorite, of course. And then later he had a different vision for the way it should look, and he had one built by another company. So we also made a Vicky for him to replace the little toy Vicky that the toy company was trying to sue Terry for using that turtle and the little girl puppet that he used as and so he needed to replace those. So I built him an Emma that's in his museum. I don't know that he ever used it. He did use it. He sang at Fergie's birthday with it, and a few other things. I'm not sure it hit the big show. And then we also made him a Winston the Turtle, the one that's on the cover of his book. That's the one I built for him. So we had two custom puppets and Julius right away, and then he wanted me to make Vicky the Cougar. Now, a lot of you don't know that Vicky the Cougar was actually a Sunday school teacher before she left my shop. So I don't know what Terry did to turn her into a cougar there in Vegas, but she was well behaved when she left. That's all I'll say about that. Vicky's been the one that's remained in his show, and then most recently we made Connie Capilia. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. For Terry, it's a Samoan or Hawaiian, big Hawaiian singer that's got a fleece burning instead of the raw latex. And that character, Terry and I are kind of co-producing a little documentary on the making of him. So I'm not sure when that's going to hit his shows, but that's kind of my story so far with Terry. We're real good friends, and we've done a lot of other things on the side together.
That's great, and I bring it up because it's one of the most well-known collaborations in the ventriloquism community, and especially more so now because he used the alien character, which you just released at Vent Haven for a lecture. And can you talk about some of the newer things that you have, the King of Rock and Roll and the alien, and kind of something that's so fresh? Where's that kind of stuff? What is your mind going to now with this new stuff?
Yeah, well, the King of Rock and Rolls he's a heavy version of Elvis. It's the later Elvis, the fat Elvis.
Yeah.
So there's not Elvis. It's just a character that looks like him, and so we call him the King of Rock and Rolls. And he is. I've got a video I'm going to upload today of him It's absolutely hilarious. I'll put that up shortly on YouTube, and it's him singing to a donut. You'll enjoy that. That's your scoop for the day.
Great.
My that was made first of all for a customer, Bart Scott, who is going to be using that in his show, and so we were just adding it to our line as the second of our parody puppets. We did the first one, which was the Jazz Man, and now this, the King of Rock and Rolls. So the alien character is something that I've been wanting to do for a long time, and I really needed to stretch my sculpting muscles, and I really enjoyed making this one. And aliens are hot, as a lot of other themes are hot. This one, I was going to make a typical gray alien that has the large, very big eyes and the palette gray skin. But as I began to sculpt it, I just was led a little bit more to do the tentacle eyes or the post eyes, and then the tentacles came, I think, as a response to someone on Facebook saying to me, "Are you going to have normal legs on it, like every other puppet has?" And I thought to myself, well, of course not. Yeah. I'm going to do something very different. And I didn't tell anyone. It was a surprise. This first time he came out of that spaceship, the flying saucer on that video, people were like freaking out. A lot of people were like, "That is the best thing I've ever seen you do." And then other people are like, "I can't get around those tentacles. I need regular legs." Yeah. There's a little bit of controversy, and people feel one way or the other. I don't know. It's just a little too out there for some, I guess. But I love the tentacles, and we are doing a leg option for those that think that it might be too freaky for kids in their show and that kind of stuff.
Right. And last thing before I go, I always wrap up with this. What's the future hold? What's the future hold for Axtell? Anything you wanna kind of clue us in on here? We should be expecting.
Yeah. Well, we are in development on a lot of new things. I'm going through my big project right now is to go through all of my notebooks, and I've got over 100 of them. The diary from day one. I'm going through them all, and I'm gathering all of my ideas over the years that are good, and just gathering them. So I'll have huge numbers. One book had, I think, 60 new ideas in it. Wow. And that's just one of 100 notebooks. So I'm gathering those, and so I'm coming out with some that are really exciting, some really good stuff. Some of our best stuff is yet to be done for sure. And then, of course, we are going strong in the area of our animatronics, and we've done this really cool 12-foot tree that is we're going to be taking that and showing it along with our Beast in the Box, the animatronic version, our Old Man Piano Player. Those will all be in Vegas next week at Magic Live. Cool. For the big Magic convention there. So a lot of great stuff coming.
Wonderful. Well, Mr. Steve Axtell, thank you very much for being with Ventriloquism Weekly. We really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thanks for doing it, Matt. Appreciate it.
Thank you once again to Steve Axtell for his time and his continued support of Ventriloquism Weekly. Next week, we welcome a new figure maker. He's just about to enter high school, but he carries himself as if he were just about to enter college. If you wonder what the next generation of figure makers is going to look like, don't miss next week. We will have Jeffrey Golk with us, along with my wrap-up of my adventures in Branson. And that's it for us this week. Write to us. Take charge of your podcast. A lot of you are starting to do that this week. Fantastic. Keep them coming. This is what I like to see. You interacting with this show. This is your show. Send your thoughts on all of our topics or any ideas you have at all to ventriloquismweekly@gmail.com. You know where to find us. iTunes, download us, and ventriloquismweekly.podomatic.com. That's ventriloquismweekly.podomatic.com. Signing off for Ventriloquism Weekly, I'm Matt Bailey, reminding all you vents out there to keep talking for two.